Now that I'm out of the rain, I will continue my reading, and what I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I'm reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around just a little bit as I move along, especially now that I am moving into the second book of Samuel. Right now, this is 2 Samuel chapter 2. David is anointed king over house of Judah. Ishbosheth becomes king of Israel. David's followers defeat Abner and those of Israel. And it came to pass after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go? And he said, Unto Hebron. So David went up thither, and his two wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail Nabal's wife, the Carmelite. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying that the men of Jabesh-Gilead were they that buried Saul. And David sent messengers unto the men of Jabesh-Gilead, and said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, that ye have shewed this kindness unto your Lord, even unto Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord shew kindness and truth unto you, and I also will requite you this kindness, because ye have done this thing. Therefore now let your hands be strengthened, and be ye valiant, for your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. Okay, now, I want to point out two things here. First of all, David does not return to Israel until he gets the okay from God. That's very important. He knows that Saul was out to kill him. You know, now Saul's dead, but he wants to make sure that if he returns to Israel, that nobody else is going to try and kill him. He gets the okay, he goes, and he learns about the men of Jabesh-Gilead burying Saul. All that's nice. But I will say here, he talks about the cities of Hebron. Now, this is an interesting historical note, okay? When Israel first came into the land of Canaan, you had the city of Hebron and its surrounding suburbs, which would be the villages and farmlands. That was 300 years ago. That was actually probably like 350 years ago. Now it's the cities of Hebron. Hebron is an area. It is no longer a single city of Hebron. There is the city of Hebron, but there's the land of Hebron, the area around Hebron, and there are multiple towns, multiple cities that are now considered part of the land of Hebron. So we see that over these few centuries, the population has been growing and expanding and building more cities. So I find that it's a minor note, but it's a very interesting historical note that shows that the people have been growing. So, anyways, verse 8. But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Now we do have a little bit of timing here that we got. Ishbosheth is 40 years old when he begins to reign, which means Saul was likely in his 60s. Ishbosheth, I believe, was his youngest son, which is why he wasn't out to war. Even though he was 40 years old, he was definitely old enough to be in the war, but he was the youngest son, and to preserve the family, to preserve the king, the name of Saul, his youngest son would have remained at home. You don't send the entire family out to fight. You leave one son at home. Which means that Saul would have been at least in his 60s when he died, possibly up into his 70s, depending on how the age range of his sons worked out. There's an interesting. We got a tentative or a estimate of how old Saul was. And I would also point out one last thing is that according to the New Testament, Paul in the New Testament says that Saul reigned for 40 years. Now, if Ishbosheth was 40 years old when he began to reign, that means Ishbosheth was born the year that Saul became king. Which means that Saul would have become king when he was in his mid to late 20s, possibly into his early 30s. So that gives us a little bit more historical context here, or the ages of these men. So here we go. Verse 12. And Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, Let the young men now arise and play before us. And Joab said, Let them arise. Then there arose and went over by number 12 of Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And they caught every one his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side. So they fell down together. Wherefore the place was called Helkath Hazurim, which is in Gibeon. And there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before the servants of David. Helkath Hazurim. Helkath Hazurim. It is translated in the footnotes here as field of foes. Now this is, again, interesting. This is just weird, really. First of all, Abner, he, remember, is Saul's cousin and the captain of the host. And he is still loyal to Saul, so when Saul's dead, he sets his son up as king, which creates a rivalry, a split kingdom. David over Judah, and Ishbosheth over the rest of Israel. Now, it seems that Ishbosheth was, his capital, you might say, was in the east, in the area of Manasseh, in the tribe of Manasseh. But then, this obviously leads to civil war. Abner leads his army in, Joab leads his army in, and this is just weird. They said, hey, let us just send 12 guys out. This is let the men play before us. That's, yeah. What they mean is, let us send out a certain number of kind of champions to fight it out and see how the battle might go. But when they go out there, they all kill each other. All 24, the 12 of Ishbosheth and the 12 of David are all killed together. And when they see that there isn't, it was kind of like the battle between David and Goliath. You know, the idea was whoever wins, their side is considered the winner of the war. You don't have to fight a full battle. You just have the champions fight. This is the same thing. But instead of one champion against one, it's 12 against 12. But all 24 die, which means there is no winner, and so they all have to go to war, and Joab defeats Abner. Verse 18. And there were three sons of Zeruiah there, Joab and Abishai and Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as a wild roe. And Asahel pursued after Abner, and in going he turned not to the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. Then Abner took a look behind him and said, Art thou Asahel? And he answered, I am. And Abner said unto him, Turn thee aside to thy right hand or to thy left, and lay thee hold on one of the young men, and take thee his armor. But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. And Abner said again to Asahel, Turn thee aside from following me. Wherefore should I smite thee to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab thy brother? Howbeit he refused to turn aside. Wherefore Abner, with the hinder's end of the spear, smote him under the fifth rib, that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. And Joab also and Abishai pursued after Abner. And the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Ammah, that lieth before Giah, by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. This is interesting. I am familiar with the story. Apparently, Asahel was chasing him without any armor, which is partly why he was probably moving so fast. He was as fleet as foot of a wild roe. This means not just that he was fast, but that he could move through the rocks and everything quickly. You know, he didn't stumble. And so he was following Abner. Abner lost the battle. He was going back. He was fleeing away. But Asahel was following him, and Abner kept telling him, he tells him, first of all, look, pick up some armor, put some armor on, make this a fair fight. Asahel refused. He said, look, just leave me alone. We're not in battle anymore. You don't need to pursue me. But he wouldn't stop. And so eventually Abner had to turn around and kill him because he was defending himself. But people see this, or they see the body of Asahel, and they all get upset because they weren't in battle. So why did Abner kill him? And I think Abner was perfectly justified because Asahel shouldn't have been chasing him. Anyways, verse 25, and the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner and became one troop, and stood on the top of an hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou not that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then, ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren? And Joab said, as God liveth, unless thou hast spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up every one from following his brother. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still, and pursued after Israel no more. Neither fought they any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from following Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men, and Asahel. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. And they took up Asahel, and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at break of day. Couple of things here. It seems to me that Abner did not come to fight. He did not come to make war. They were going to Gibeon. This is where Saul is from. This is Saul's hometown. It seems to me that he was just leading his army down there because he considered it to be his land, or Saul's land. And David sent Joab out because David considered it to be part of his land. I don't think either one really meant to go to battle, but they do. And you can see the one-sidedness of this fight. David's men, they lose 20 total, 19 plus Asahel. And Abner loses 360. That's a pretty one-sided battle. Maybe because David taught his men how to use the bow. But I do know Abner, after he's running away, they're going back to Mahanaim. They're crossing Jordan, going back over to their own place. And he says, Joab, why are we fighting? We are all Israel. There's no need to fight. We're leaving. And Joab says, well, we would have stopped chasing you tomorrow anyway, so we'll just leave now. But you do know Joab does seem to carry a grudge about his brother's death. Now, one last note. Zeruiah, if I remember correctly, is the sister of David, making Joab, Abishai, and Asahel David's nephews. So there is a familial connection there too. It's very interesting. And I will see you in the next chapter.